Have you noticed this? Walk into any trendy apartment, doesn't matter what city, and you'll see the same thing. Cream-colored couch, minimal art, a single plant in the corner, maybe a mushroom lamp. Scroll Instagram. Everyone's feed looks similar. Neutral tones, clean lines, that specific aesthetic that says, I have taste, but I'm not trying too hard. Here's what gets me. These places, these people, these aesthetics, they're never coordinated. They don't know each other. And yet somehow we've all arrived at the exact same visual language. When I first noticed this, I thought, okay, it's just trends, people copying what they see. But then I started thinking, why these trends? Why now? And why does it feel less like self-expression and more like, I don't know, speaking the same script? Today, I want to argue that this isn't just about aesthetics. It's about something deeper, about how we're being shaped, often invisibly, by the world we live in, and philosophy. Specifically, one French philosopher who spent his whole life studying power can help us see exactly how this works. My name is and on this channel, I decode the hidden systems behind how we look, what we buy and live, not just to critique it, but to understand it, to see the forces shaping us more clearly. Let's dive in. So first, let's actually map out what we're seeing, because it's not just one thing, it's everywhere. In fashion, we see the clean girl aesthetic, quiet luxury, capsule wardrobes, neutral palette, the idea that less is more, that restraint is sophisticated. In interiors, what's in? Minimalism, Scandinavian design, everything beige or greyish, open shelving, plants as the only decoration, the Instagram apartment. In food and lifestyle, you've seen air-wound smoothies, Joe at the juice, overpriced wellness products. Everything is curated, matcha. Everything is elevated. The word aesthetic is being used as a noun. In branding, sans serif fonts, pastel packaging, brands that all look like they could sell anything. Skincare, furniture, therapy apps. This isn't random, I want to say. This is a pattern. And when a pattern shows up across industries, across demographics, across continents, when people who've never met are making the same choices, something structural is going on. So the question is, what's driving this? Let me throw out three possible explanations. Theory one, algorithms. Maybe social media platforms are just showing us the same stuff over and over, and we're copying what we're seeing. The algorithm creates an aesthetic monoculture. Theory two, capitalism. Maybe it's just the market. Big brands figured out what sells. Neutral, minimal, safe, and they're just flooding us with it. We're buying what's available. Theory three, surveillance. Maybe it's about control. Maybe we're living in a world where we're constantly visible, judged, and this aesthetic convergence is a response to that pressure. Here's the thing, all three are true, but theory three, the surveillance one, is the one that really unlocks what's happening. And to understand it, we need to talk about Michel Foucault. Michel Foucault was a French philosopher writing in the 1970s. He wasn't interested in kings or armies. He was obsessed with a different question. How does power work when it's invisible? Because here's what Foucault noticed. Modern societies don't control people through force. They control people through discipline. What's the difference? Force says, do this or I'll punish you. Discipline says, here's the normal way to be. Here's what everyone else is doing. Here's what good looks like. And over time, you internalize it. You don't need anyone to tell you what to do anymore. You just know. You regulate. Foucault called this disciplinary power, And he argues it's everywhere. Schools, workplaces, hospitals, prisons, anywhere where there are norms about how to behave, how to appear, how to be. The most effective power, Foucault said, is power that doesn't feel like power. It feels like common sense. And I think that's exactly what's happening with this aesthetic convergence. Let me tell you about the idea that changed how I see everything. Imagine a prison shaped like a circle. Cells on the outside, guard tower in the middle. Here's the genius. The guard tower has one-way glass. The prisoners can't tell if anyone's watching. So what do? They behave all the time, just in case. This was a real design from the 18th century philosopher named Jeremy Bentham. He thought it would be the most efficient prison ever because you wouldn't need many guards. The possibility of being watched would be enough. Foucault took this idea and said, this is how modern societies work. We don't need literal prisons anymore. We have something better. We have visibility. Now replace this guard tower with your phone's front-facing camera. Replace prison cells with Instagram, LinkedIn, dating apps, Zoom calls, security cameras, Ring doorbells, tag photos you didn't even consent to. Who's watching you? You don't even know. It could be anyone. It could be everyone. It could be your future employer, a potential date, the person from high school who you haven't talked to in 10 years, but who somehow still has a lot to say about you. So what do? You curate yourself, just in case. You make yourself readable, safe. Welcome to the panopticon. And once you see it, you can't really unsee it. So here's where it all comes together. The reason everything looks the same now, the apartments, the outfits, the restaurants, the Instagram feeds, is because we're all responding to the same pressure, the pressure of constant visibility. When you're always being watched, or might be watched, you optimize for legibility. You want to be readable as professional, put together, tasteful, non-threatening, acceptable. What aesthetic does that? Neutral tones, minimal design, clean lines, restraint, nothing loud, nothing messy, nothing that could be misread. It's not that we all secretly have the same taste, it's that we're all managing the same risk. And here's what's wild. No one told us to do this. There is no rule book, no authority figure saying everyone must decorate with cream-colored furniture, but we do it anyway because the system doesn't need explicit rules. It just needs norms, visibility, and the knowledge that deviation has social costs. This is Foucault's point exactly. The most effective power is power that we enforce on ourselves. Now, here's what's interesting. If you think about it from a market perspective, because this isn't just cultural, it's commercial. When consumers feel constantly surveilled, they buy differently. They buy safe. They buy neutral. They buy things that won't age poorly in photos or make them look off-brand in 5 years. That's why brands like The Row, Glossier, Country Road, and Reformation exploded. They're not just selling products, they're selling legibility. They're selling the feeling of being unimpeachable. This is a person who has their life put together. This is a person who knows what taste is. This is a person who won't be judged. And that's what's valuable, because in a panoptic world, being misread feels like a real threat. So brands that understand this, that we're not just shopping for products, we're shopping for safety, those brands win. Understanding this isn't just cultural criticism, it's market literacy. Now you might be thinking, I see people reject this all the time. Maximalist fashion, weird experimental style, that exists too. Absolutely. And Foucault would say, Where there is power, there's always resistance. But here's the thing, even resistance exists in relation to the norm. So when someone goes maximalist, it's framed as brave, which implies that minimalism is safe. When someone dresses boldly, it's a statement, which implies that neutral is default. The norm still structures conversation. It's still the reference. But that's how you know it's not just a trend, it's a system. So here's what we covered. One plausible reason why everything looks the same isn't necessarily because we lack creativity or individuality. It's because we're all living in a panopticon. We're constantly visible, constantly judged. And so we've learned to make ourselves legible, controlled. This shows up in our clothes, our apartments, our aesthetics, our purchases. It's not random. This week, I want you to try something. Next time you are making a choice about how to look or what to buy, pause and ask yourself, am I doing this because this genuinely is something that I want, or is it because it feels safer? Just notice. No judgment, just awareness. Drop your thoughts below. Have you noticed this pattern? Does it feel restrictive or comforting? Okay. I will see you next week. We continue doing things that are excellent, opulent, decadence. This is Dr. Z. You know the vibes already.